am Femi Okay.
I'm Malika Bilal, and you're in the stream.
Today we explore 3 stories making headlines around the world, including the first annual Indigenous Peoples March and the ongoing teacher strike in Los Angeles, California.
And we'll also go to the first annual Indigenous Peoples March. Organizers hope to raise awareness on issues affecting Indigenous communities worldwide. Have a look at First Nations activist Maggie Saiwink speaking to the stream in October 2017 about Canada's missing and murdered Indigenous women.
Part of the issue is that my sister was murdered in 1994. So that was 23 years ago, and I've done a lot of work. You know, it takes a lot of hard work to be able to find a place where you find your balance. And I don't think the tools have been available for families to actually have that. Mm-hmm. And so we need to make this Indigenous-led, community-driven.
About you.
About community, about families. I keep hearing the word government all over this conversation today, and I want to hear less government and more about families.
We're pleased to welcome Maggie Saiwink back to the stream wearing her power jacket. Also joining us, Chase Iron Eyes is an attorney and march organizer. Great to have you both.
Thank you.
So I want to start with our community tweeting in about this. There's a lot of excitement and there is enthusiasm, and there is a reason, there's a cause that's bringing people out. This is Johnny J, who tweets in, here in the US, Natives are less than 2% of the entire population. The march and the rally is an amazing way for us to come together and shed light on the struggles and injustices we face in our communities, while simultaneously celebrating our resilience, our strength, and our tenacity. So a lot there. Chase, talk to us about where this idea came from.
Yes, thank you for having me on. Well, you know, we all watched Standing Rock, the No DAPO struggle, which saw tens of thousands of people coming to what we know is a spiritual awakening, a re-spiritualizing, a re-civilizing of the entire planet. All of us have been colonized in some form or some fashion. And we feel that our spirits are naturally seeking, they're inclined to seek a liberation and to seek the truth. And the truth is, the universe is sacred. Depending on whose metaphysics you use, what religion, what philosophy, what worldview, but we as Indigenous nations have to let the world know that our law, our jurisprudence, our economics, our politics have to be grounded spiritually. And thankfully, we survived a genocide. Our Holocaust is denied in this country. We don't learn our true history. But thankfully, our grandmothers and our grandfathers survived. And we still speak our languages. We still have our metaphysics, our knowledge systems. We want to share them with the world. It's time to share.
Maggie, watching you on that clip from when you last visited the stream, what I hear is that you are part of a movement. The Indigenous peoples of North America, actually Indigenous peoples of the world, are rising up and they are moving forward as part of a movement. Do you feel that? Am I misinterpreting that, or am I seeing exactly what you're trying to do? Because I also see politics at play here too.
Mostly, I believe that, you know, we have to come from this, politics have to play a secondary role in this at this point in time. I believe, I agree with Chase, it has to be a spiritual movement, a spiritual reawakening, a balancing of who we are as Indigenous people. And we are in a crisis mode at this point. All Indigenous people all over the world, the women and girls, the children, they're all being sacrificed at the hand of colonialism. And it's really needs to be rebalanced.
You mentioned a crisis moment there. I wanted to bring up just a handful of what some people are saying they are marching for. This is Mary. Mary says, January 18th, Indigenous people will stand together for the injustices affecting Indigenous people. Genocide, voter suppression, divided families by walls and borders, environmental holocaust, sex and human trafficking with little resources and awareness. So a bevy of issues there. But Maggie, talk to us about the number one thing that you think is uniting people when they come out to march.
I believe it's really a sense of knowing that the true answers, the law of this land lies with Indigenous people. These are these are our lands, our waters, our ceremonies, and our knowledge keepers are still very much alive in this country. And we want to have a resurgence of that. We know that it will lead this country to a sense of empowerment and truth.
We have the first Indigenous March coming up this week, Chase. How do you organize something this big?
Well, we have to do it face to face. A lot of our organizing can't just happen online and in social media, but because we have such a strong social media presence, we know, just as everybody else, that we are facing existential crises. We are facing a nuclear reality. We're facing water shortages, human-caused climate changes. We know that our time is now, that we don't necessarily have time to waste. So the sense of urgency is right now. The government shutdown needs to end right now. My people on Pine Ridge, Standing Rock are suffering right now. Somebody could die because Trump, not only does he deride us, calling us Pocahontas, calling into question the reasons behind missing and murdered Indigenous women, but he makes a flippant remark about our genocide at Wounded Knee and at Little Bighorn. And so not only do we need to end the shutdown, but we need to create a solidarity with the Yellow Vest movement around the world, people fighting for workers' rights, Indigenous children being separated from their families at the border and through Indian Child Welfare Act violations. So there's nothing but good energy and solidarity that we're trying to create here in Washington, D.C.
I wanted to bring up another comment from someone online, Survival International. This group says, we are certainly following this march, and we'd love attention to be drawn to the abuse of Indigenous and tribal peoples in the name of conservation, i.e. land theft to create protected areas, hunter-gatherers treated as poachers, and beaten, tortured, and killed by park rangers. So just another issue or series of issues there that people are focused on. But I wanted to land on this tweet. This is from Johnny again, and she says, the key points that I want to get across are that we are still here, and that we will be idle no more, silent no more, invisible no more, because our lives, land, water, and futures are in jeopardy due to the ongoing cycle of anti-indigeneity and genocide that we are faced with. Maggie, what would you call success at the end of the march when it's over? Because of course then there's also the Women's March that's scheduled. There's also a pro or anti-abortion rights march. So there's a lot of marching that will happen in the Capitol this weekend. But for you, what will success look like for the Indigenous Peoples March at the end of it?
In terms of missing and murdered? In terms of
if that is your key issue, yes.
Well, I think it's to bring awareness that, all of the systemic issues surrounding the missing and murdered, both in Canada and the United States, is at epidemic proportions at this point in time. There are women going missing, girls younger and younger all the time. Human trafficking is actually part of the way that our young girls are being taken. So at the end of the march, I would like to say that we have a bigger awareness. We have a place where people understand what is really causing the issues of why our women are being murdered, why our children are being taken from us and disappearing.
Maggie and Chase, I want to thank you both for joining us today and for your time. We'll, of course, be looking forward to that march. Now to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, where the outcome of the presidential election has come under scrutiny. Al Jazeera Africa correspondent Haru Mutasa reports from Kinshasa.
The Catholic Church deployed 40,000 election observers on voting day last month. Their tally says opposition leader Martin Fayulu won 61% of the vote, almost twice as many as the official result of 34%. The presidential runner-up attended church on Sunday. He accuses Felix Tshisekedi of making a deal with the outgoing president, Joseph Kabila, to steal the election. Fayulu has gone to the Constitutional Court to appeal to judges to order a recount. Calls to end the political crisis are growing. The Southern African Development Community wants a recount of the votes or a government of national unity formed. The regional body's approval of the electoral process is crucial for the legitimacy of the government and the new president.
Haru Mutasa joins us now with the latest from the DRC. Haru, it's really good to see you. I was looking online to see what people were talking about the DRC. I came across Kumi Naidu, who is the head of Amnesty International. This is what he tweeted out earlier. The people of the DRC have suffered more than enough. Let's show them we have their backs. We demand the government must restore internet and SMS, stops cracking down on protests, reopen media outlets. It's time for a change. He appeals to the international community to do something. I'm just wondering, Haru, as you're covering this election fallout, how are the people reacting? How are they dealing with it?
Right now, like everyone else, they're waiting for the Constitutional Court to make a ruling on whether Felix Tshisekedi did indeed win the election. If they rule that he didn't, they could order a recount, or they could say the DRC has to have another election all over again, which could take months, and that will cost a lot of money the DRC really doesn't have. In terms of reaction on the ground, it's quiet, relatively quiet. I mean, there was violence day after the results were announced, but it's quiet. People are waiting patiently. They've gotten used to the fact that there's no internet. In the early days, we saw them being frustrated that they couldn't SMS, they couldn't go on social media. But now it's a case of, okay, well, there's nothing we can do about it. Let's wait for these results to be released, and then maybe the government will switch on back the internet. So generally, I can say it's calm. It's a little bit tense, of course, people wait for these results. But right now, a lot of people understand there really is nothing much they can do until these results are released. And we're hearing the judges could make a ruling in court as early as Friday.
So, Haru, we got a lot of comments from people asking us to cover these ongoings. This is Tony here, and he brings up an interesting point I'm hoping you can clear for us, because he says we should cover the DR Congo election results and the uproar from the Congolese Catholic Church. So talk to us about the role of the Catholic Church in this. I know that they deployed election observers. Now what? What's their role now?
Well, they're hugely influential here. Many people here are Catholics. And here, when the bishops speak, when the priests speak, people generally tend to listen. Of course, opinions are divided. There are some Congolese who will say to you, why is the church even involved in politics? That is not their business. They must stay out of it. But others say in the past, over the years, whenever there was a crisis, you get the church would come in, try and mediate and resolve that crisis. So mixed opinions up in the air. The Catholic Church, according to their tally, are saying that opposition leader Martin Fayulu won the election with 61% of the vote. Obviously, Tshisekedi's supporters say that is not true. They feel he's the man who won. But right now, like I said, I mean, despite what the Catholic Church is saying, the matter is now in the Constitutional Court. It's how those 8 judges are going to rule on Friday, if they rule on Friday. If they say they need more time, we could be waiting until next week. And right now, for the moment, for the most part, genuinely most parts of the country, people are quietly waiting for that announcement. And the reaction, of course, would be, if you aren't happy with whoever has won or who's been declared the winner, how will the losers react? There's a fear there could be violence if some people don't accept the court decision.
I mean, what is Joseph Kabila doing in all of this? This is quite an unexpected turn of events. What is his role?
Well, as you know, some people are accusing him of manipulating the election results so that Felix Tshisekedi, his preferred candidate, wins this election. His camp has denied all this. So far, he's been fairly quiet. I mean, there was a video posted a few days ago of him dancing at some kind of ceremony. So he seems jovial, and he's told people to be calm and wait for the outcome. Again, of course, a lot of people are wondering, what is his end game? Because they feel that if it is true that he put Tshisekedi in power by making him win the election result, which he denies, but if it is true, there's a fear he could still be pulling the strings from behind the scenes after the new president is sworn in, which means nothing much will change in the DRC. But again, I stress, his camp does deny that, but there are some people very suspicious about his end game. They know that he took a long time to have this election. It seemed for a while he didn't even want it. Now that it finally happened, is he really going to go away quietly and retire, or is he still going to be manipulating things behind the scenes?
Haru, I wanted to bring up an interesting point that a couple of people have tweeted us, and they say that there is Western influence in this. This is Jean, who says, I think the elections were chaotic, but using this to divide the Congolese people, as some of the media around the world do with their reports projecting Fayulu the winner, this creates fiction which isn't acceptable. These documents could be easily tampered with, and we don't want war. Another person writes in saying that it is Western TV and radio stations that are trying to interfere in the decision decision of the justice and trying to proclaim Fayulu the winner. So clearly there are people here who are skeptical about the need for a recount.
Exactly. First of all, on the recount, some people are saying these ballot papers, where have they been sitting all this time? If there is a recount, what guarantee do we have that they have not been tampered with? In terms of Western influence, France has been very, very vocal about this election. They feel that Martin Fayulu is the one who won this election, not Felix Tshisekedi. African leaders had a meeting in Ethiopia today, on Thursday, and they basically said to the international community, please don't interfere in the DRC politics. Leave it to the people of the DRC. Let them decide the outcome. Let them resolve this crisis. African leaders are saying everyone must now put their faith in the Constitutional Court. Wait and hear what those judges say. And then after that decision, we'll see which way the DRC goes. So conflicting views again from the international community and from African leaders about what to do about controversial African elections. This is nothing new. It happens pretty much all the time on this continent. The key thing, of course, is how will the DRC people handle this process, and will they accept the final result?
Remains to be seen. Thanks for that update, Haru. Finally, to Los Angeles, California, where thousands of teachers are striking for an increase in pay and better work conditions. Al Jazeera correspondent Rob Reynolds filed this report from LA.
Tens of thousands of teachers and their supporters rallied in front of LA City Hall. California is among the richest of the 50 U.S. states, but ranks 43rd in terms of the amount of public funds spent per student, half as much as New York.
What do we want?
The school board says it can't afford all the union's demands, in part due to the heavy cost of pension and health benefits. The LA strike is part of a growing movement. Teachers in several U.S. states walked out last year and won higher pay and other concessions. How long the LA strike will last, no one knows, with these children's education at stake.
Direct from the picket line in Los Angeles, in California, we have Matt Rosen. He is a teacher at Fairfax Senior High. And Bradley Beaumont is a journalist also based in Los Angeles. Matt, I'm just thinking, we're 4 days into this strike. How's it going?
I am sitting in my car right now. I'm soaked. I am upset. I have no clue when this strike is going to be resolved. Our demands are many and our power is increasing. The students are out there with us in the streets. The counselors are out there in the streets with us. We're seeing now more parents today than ever. The weather today is wet and miserable, and we are making it a point to say what we believe needs to happen in LA today.
Matt, I'm just going to share with our audience one of the pictures that you took earlier so that we could really get a sense of what it's like on the picket line. Look here on my laptop. This is what Matt was out in just a little while ago. He's going back out there as soon as he's finished talking to us. Malika?
And Matt is not the only one in his car because it is pouring rain in the Los Angeles area. Here is another teacher. So Alyssa tweeted this video of a fellow teacher. This is Megan, an LA teacher, and she talks about why this strike isn't just about LA. Here's what she told the stream.
I definitely think this is the beginning of something, or the continuation actually, of the hard work of all of the teachers who went on strike last year. And it's something that's going to continue to spread throughout this country. When the fifth largest economy in the world struggles to have class sizes that are within a national norm of 21 to 25 students, our norm is in the 30s, if not 40s. And it's in one of the most progressive states in the union, then the very nature of public education is at risk.
So Bradley, she references the continuation of mass protests we saw in 2018 across the U.S. Did this surprise you to see protests here in L.A. for the first time really in 30 years?
Well, you know, it's not surprising. There were 21 months of lead up to these protests. We knew it was on the table, but when it actually happened, I mean, it was the first time in 30 years, as you said. This is new territory for a lot of us here.
Matt, what was the moment where you thought, I can't take this anymore, that we have to do something? What was that moment?
So I've been a teacher for 13 years. I'm also a Los Angeles Unified product. And I know from 20 years ago that there have been problems. When did I decide to step up and make sure that I put my face in front of all this? When I found out that our district superintendent is making $350,000 a year. When I did my math and I realized that our governor of California is making over $100,000 less, that upsets me. And when they talk about there's no money for students, that upsets me. We have an investment banker as our district superintendent making over $250,000 who can't find money for students. This is how I'm upset.
I wanted to share this perspective from someone on Twitter who saw the package that we played a little bit earlier from our correspondent, Rob Reynolds, who talks about 40 plus students in one class. And so Xanatex on Twitter says 40 plus students in a class could be okay if we had 5 plus teaching assistants per class, which most classes do not. So Bradley, I know that you spoke to an art teacher who's juggling a lot. What did you learn?
Yeah, on the first day of the strike, I connected with an art teacher. She, in one period, she has 5 different curriculums that she'll teach. She'll teach ceramics 1 and 2. She'll teach AP studio art, and then she'll teach 2 separate special education classes. And that's spread between 40 plus students that one teacher is handling. And as she said to me, she said, it'll make your head explode.
Matt, tell us a story about your teaching life that will wake up the world as to why you need to be on strike in Los Angeles right now.
Great. So I'm a history teacher, and this is a great example for our students to see democracy in action. So as a history teacher and someone who's representing all teachers today, this is extremely important for everybody to understand that their voice matters. We just got through a general election. And one of the reasons that this is timed for the present is because our governor, Gavin Newsom, needs to start paying attention. When we hear about stories in the classroom of 40 plus students, it is unmanageable. I can speak to it personally, and I have friends in elementary school. I'm an 8-year teacher in middle school, and it is unrealistic for anybody to manage the education of 25 or more students. This is where we need to start valuing the education that we give our teachers and the opportunities that we put in front of them to stay in the classroom so that we can develop the relationships with the students, so that we can provide the counselor with the kind of feedback that they need to be able to successfully counsel these students and to be able to create the curriculum that makes learning fun. And it's not a boring, disengaged classroom like we can remember from when we were kids. Learning is different now. There are so many factors that make the classroom more interesting and more dynamic that we cannot create a safe learning environment to implement any of these with 40 kids in the classroom.
So I just wanted to direct our audience to the hashtag for this LAUSD strike, and you can see that on Twitter and just go through. There are lots of pictures there. This from Joel Friedman, who says, day 4, this is harder than it looks. Stand up, fight back. So with that, Bradley, what is the future of negotiations right now? Where is this going?
We don't know. Today we've seen the first positive sign. They left the negotiating table last Friday. We got news overnight that both sides have agreed to meet today in City Hall. The mayor will be mediating their conversations. They're meeting in about 4 minutes here at noon. The president of the union, Mr. Alex Caputo Pearl, he said that it would be a little overly optimistic to think that they will get a resolution today. He said there's a good chance that it'll go into the weekend, and there's a chance that it'll go into next week. And he urged the teachers to stay fighting. He said that the more that they protest, the easier time they'll have at the bargaining table.
I'm just going to wrap up with a look at your Twitter page here, Brad. In the pouring rain, a band of students and music teachers took over the PA system as soon as Caputo Pearl finished speaking. And you can see the rain is coming down. The weather is miserable, but it looks like the teachers are getting ready for a fight. Matt Rosen, Bradley Beaumont, thank you very much for telling us about the LA teachers' strike. We will keep following it with other stories also at aljazeera.com. You can also follow us on Twitter. We're at AJStream. Thanks for watching. Malik and I will see you next time. Take care.